everyone, welcome. This is my first video for 2023. So this is Artie Tambarambaa, also known as Tammy Klingner, and today I'm creating the first of my creations for 2023. So I've gone with a theme that I will explain as I go along, but I'm using the artist size journal, which is the larger Art by Marlene journal, and I'm using lots of Art by Marlene goodies today, and they will be all listed down in the comments, so you can read the codes of the products. So I've pulled a page out and I just wanted to create a background, and I guess I've been creating the advent calendar mini book that I've been doing, and it's so much fun, and I did quite a few backgrounds with this, just layers and brush marks, and I just really enjoyed it. So I thought, let's do a larger one, and I guess I just find it really mindful, good. It's good for my well-being. I just lose myself in it, and so I thought, yeah, time to do a big one. So I started with the colors, the yellow, which is happy, and I'm actually just whacking them down with using my fingers. Like, I love that thought of getting back in touch with that little girl who loved to paint and finger paint at kindy and at primary school. So I just whacked down some yellow, and then I also used some blue, which is Mermaid, and some pink, which is Ballet, and I've also used a bit of glow, which is the fluoro, the neon green. Yeah, and I just basically have gone in and I've been a little bit mindful of where I'm matching up my colours. So next to, for example, the yellow and the blue, when they mix, they make a green. And so then I've also added a touch of the green as well. So, yeah, pink and blue give you a little pop of purple. And then I have added in a little bit of white as well, just into the background there. And then I've come in with a stronger colour, Azure, and that was purely because some of my joins were just looking a bit dodgy. So I came in with a brush rather than my finger, and I'm just gradually building up all of those layers, and that is what hides where the colours join. I'm probably not explaining myself very well, but yeah, I'm basically building up colour. So one part I didn't mention is I've come in with the latest scrap paper, the mixed up paper of Marlene's, and there's one in there with a large circle in it, and I thought, oh, I'm going to use that. So I just cut out the circle and put it to the side. Okay, so now I'm basically trying to cover up where my paint colours join. So where the pink is, I'm coming in with pink and just bringing it a little bit further out. And where the blue is, the azure, the deep teal, I'm doing the same. I'm just bringing it slightly out and slightly across over the other colours. And I did it the same with some Mermaid in amongst that light green there. But I find that if I finger paint first, then I can come in with a brush, and that gives another layer, and it just adds that depth, and gradually you lose all the joining up bits. Yeah, so it's just a process, and I find it really relaxing. So I've just got some of Marlene's brushes, and this time I've come in with Punk, which is a favourite colour of mine, which is a neon purple, and I'm just mainly focusing that around where the pinks and the blues join up, because that gave a natural purple, and now I'm just building that in so it looks like it's part of the paint and not colours blending, if that makes sense. So it just adds the layers. So I'm just really keeping on going. Now I've got a lot finer brush, and I'm using basically the same colours again, coming in with that Mermaid and Azure, and just adding little mark makings, just in little touches. You don't want to totally fill your page, but you do want to bring in different size brush marks and different colours, and you sort of end up with this, yeah, sort of confetti layered look, which I'm really, really liking. So then I decided that I had completely got rid of my white, and I always like when I'm working with colour to add white because it just makes all the colours pop. So I've just come in with some lace paint and whacked it down, and then while it's still wet, I've used a stencil of Marlene's that she designed for the Crafters Workshop called Botanical Dream, and I'm just pulling back that white paint. So you're left behind with that gorgeous florally pattern. And Marlene has lots and lots of stencils with different flowers and mark making, so you can use any of those for the background. It actually just adds something, and that's all we want, is just a little something something. Okay, so now I've come back in with my circle that I cut out earlier that Marlene had in her paper, and there's a couple of flowers also on that paper, and so I cut those out because I thought, well, I'll use those. And what I'm thinking about is I'm thinking about the new year, and I always start the new year with one little word. So for any of you who know Ali Edwards, I've followed her for years, and I've had probably for about 12 years I've had a word. So instead of setting New Year's resolutions that sort of put pressure on me and usually end up failing, this is about thinking about a word that's meaningful to you, that you want to invite more into your life, that you want to create a ripple, you want to grow that part of your life. Then I have that word with me all year long. So what I have actually already chosen my word. So my word has found me. So a friend actually sent me this quote, this word, and it is actually, I think you say Meraki, and it's been popping up all over the place ever since, and it just spoke to me at the time. And Meraki is all about putting yourself into your art, so about leaving a piece of yourself into whatever you're creating in. And I think for me that incorporates so many words that are important to me, like being authentic and being real and lots and lots of words. So it was a way for me to combine sort of creativity and combine some of my other words. So that's the word I'm going with. And what I did do was I grabbed out the extra large golden oldie book, and I basically just flipped through and found as many things as I could that just felt like me. So, for example, there's flowers, and I added leaves to those because I'm thinking about growth, new growth. I also enjoy being out in nature, and I enjoy gardening. Then I added my little house in there to represent my home and my family. I added a heart with a rainbow to represent my art. I also added a paintbrush with rainbow colours. I added a cat with a crown because cats are just so important to me. And lots of other things, moons and stars, because I just want more of looking up into the sky. And there's lots and lots of reasons that I've added these things. There's also an owl, and I put a party hat on him because I have a special birthday this year. So it's just sort of thinking about all the things that are important to me and combining that into my art, which goes really well with my word for the year. So I've been doing, creating away in the background there, but basically I still added a few more mark making to my layers. And then I took inspiration from the circle that I cut. It had little dots in the background, so I grabbed one of the little mixed element stamps, and it's just little tiny dots, and I just copied that by adding white paint to them and popping it in the background, and it just ties in that circle with the background that I have created. So I've put all my little pieces aside, and now my background is actually a lot bolder and brighter than the circle that Marlene had already created. So I just decided to liven it up a bit, put a bit more pop of colour in there. And a really good way to do that is using the colours that you've used, but also neons. So neons will sit on the surface. They're translucent. They won't cover up what's there, but they will just add a pop of colour. So I basically added just a few bits and pieces. Now I'm kind of playing around with where I want all my special things that mean something to me. So I did glue. Have I glued my circle down? Well, maybe I haven't. No, I don't think I have. No, I haven't. So I'm just now gluing down all my little pieces that are quite meaningful to me, and they're hanging off the edge, and I'm going to trim the edge off. So I'm only really putting glue on the bit that is going to be stuck down. So I don't need to put glue on the parts where they're hanging off the page and they will be cut off. So yeah, I'm just basically whacking them all down. And the flowers I decided to have hanging off the circle a little bit because I just liked the way that looked. And finding another little flower to poke in underneath. So once I've stuck them all on, I've just trimming them off, and then that is my completed circle. Oops, one more little flower. So now I put some of the sticky glue, which is what I use to stick them all down with. It's great glue. It dries clear, so if any goes out from the sides, you're not going to see it. It's going to dry clear. And now I have stuck it down, and I'm coming in with a black Life of Colour paint pen, and I'm just going around the edges. So I'm using a thicker one, and I'm also coming back in with a thinner one as well, and just being a bit scribbly and making it look a lot more natural, and also covering up that it had a black sort of painted edge around the circle, and some of my images had gone over the top, so I'm just putting that line back in. So I thought about using that stamp, but then I decided that I really didn't need it. But what I need to do is I feel like it's getting a little lost. So obviously the circle with all the things in it are the focal point of the page. And I really want that to look like it's in the foreground. So that needs to sit forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and push the background back a bit. So to do that, I've got some black paint, and I'm just using my finger I started with a sponge, but I actually felt that using my finger gives it a more painterly look, and it actually goes with that edging of the circle better. So I've just come in and added the black, and then I'm just adding a few little more marks coming into the circle with the black, just so there is a little bit more black in the page. And then with the leftover, I've just added a little bit of water and then add a few splatters. So I did cover up all that centre stuff, because you can bet your bottom dollar some of that splatter is going to land in the cat's eye or the owl's eye or somewhere I don't want it to be. So I've just covered that up with the baby wipe and then flicked the paint on. So now this is the second part of pushing back that background. So what I'm doing is I've grabbed the colour Azure, which is the deep teal, and I have added a little bit of Smurf to it too, which is a deep blue. And then I've mixed it with lots of water. So it's not quite a watercolour, but it's a lot runnier. And what, is that a word? Runnier? And what I'm doing is I'm painting around the very edge of my circle, and just sort of letting it blend outwards. So I don't want to totally paint over. That's why I added water, because I want it to be a little bit translucent. I'm basically just trying to create a shadow, and what that shadow does is push back that background, which then makes the foreground pop out. So now I'm also coming around the edges with that same colour, and also just blending that downwards a little bit. So it just means that background is not quite fighting so much with the foreground. So it's almost blocking a little bit of it out. And then I felt like I'd covered up way too much of the yellow, so I went in and just popped a bit more of that back in, and just adding a little bit more pops of colour to that circle as well. And now I'm using a Stabilo All Pencil. And the Stabilo All Pencil is a water-soluble pencil, so you could use a watercolour, but I'm basically just drawing around the edging of my shapes, particularly on one side, because I'm thinking about shadows. And this just helps them to sit again forward forward from the circle. So basically, my foreground, at the very front, is my images, then there's the circle, and then there's the backdrop. So that's the illusion that I'm trying to create. So I then go round the edge of those lines with just a fine brush and some water, and it just blends them a bit and creates a little bit of shadowing. And the shadowing is what makes them pop and sit forward. So you can see that it's starting to come to life. Now, it does take a little bit of work to make your images not look so flat, but to actually create depth to them. But it's all about the layers, and it is worth it. I mean, it's such a fun process, but eventually it'll just come together, and that's just the magic moment. So now I think I said before, I always put some black and white into my work when I'm using lots of colours, and that's because they're both neutrals and they just help both brighten the colours but also calm the busyness down a bit. So I'm coming in with some white lace paint and just again doing some of those mark makings. And now, one of the funny things about this word that kept appearing when I was flipping through some of Marlene's quotes, there it was, and I hadn't noticed it before. So I was like, oh my God, that's just perfect. So it actually says Meraki, word that modern Greeks often use to describe what happens when you leave a piece of yourself, your soul, creativity or love in your work. When you love doing something, anything, so much that you put something of yourself into it. So that's my word for this year. And I have actually grabbed the Marlene's alphabet stickers and put the word around the edge of the circle as well. And then I've come in with some a white paint pen, and I did some journaling about how it's my one little word and why it's my one little word. So I've just written that around the edge in white gel pen, and then I felt like it kind of stood out a bit much, so I went over it in black pen, so you kind of get, it sort of looks like a bit like a shadow with it. And then I reckon I came in and did a few scribbles around the circle as well. And now I've got my white lace paint, and I'm just adding some big bold marks straight out of the tube, just around the edge of the circle, and a few little dots as well, just here and there on my page. So I think now all I need to do is get that quote to look like it's meant to be on the page. So I'm going around with a fine pen, doing scribbles around the edges, and then I've also come in again with that Stabilo All and just creating a bit of depth. So yeah, that is it. So I'll pop it in the front page of my album because it's a nice way to lead off the album, and I'll leave you with some close-ups so you can see all those cute little critters that are very meaningful to me. And I'm wishing you all a wonderful 2023. If you have a word, I'd love you to leave it below and let me know what it is. I love hearing from you all. Thanks everyone for your support. Happy New Year. Bye.